Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we discuss the Supreme Court's latest hearing on electoral bonds. We also take a look at the rising cases of COVID-19 in the country. But first, we talk about West Bengal. Today, the second phase of the West Bengal Assembly elections will take place. In the state, the Trinamool Congress, that is the TMC, has ruled for nearly a decade. And it is where the Bharatiya Janata Party, that is the BJP, has aggressively been trying to come to power. Now, in this second phase, 30 constituencies will go to polls. And this includes the constituency of Nandigram. This is the seat where the battle between the Trinamool Congress and the Bharatiya Janata Party is perhaps the fiercest in the state. This is because this is the seat from which Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, the founder of the TMC, is running from. And the person who is running against her is Suvendu Adhikari, who used to be Banerjee's close aide but who has now joined the BJP. For this segment, we spoke to Ravik Bhattacharya, who writes on West Bengal politics for the Indian Express, about the significance of this seat. We spoke to him yesterday while he had been travelling in Nandigram.
Nandigram always holds a special place in West Bengal politics, and especially when elections come about. In 2007, Nandigram came to the limelight for anti-land acquisition movement, which was led by Bhumi Uchhed Prathirodh Committee in the beginning. Then later on, Suvendu Adhikari, Mamata Banerjee, they both joined into the protest.
It was people like Mamata Banerjee and Suvendu Adhikari who had been at the forefront of the anti-land acquisition movement. A movement that opposed the land acquisition policy that allowed the state to acquire private land for industrialization and the development of other infrastructure projects. During this movement, a major incident took place in Nandigram on 14th March 2007. That day, 14 people were killed in police firing. At the time, the Left Front Party had been in power and agitations in Nandigram had been going on against the party. Ravik says that it was the Nandigram incident and the anti-land acquisition movement that had catapulted Mamata Banerjee into the center of Bengal politics.
And helped her to come in power in 2011, ending 34 years of left rule. So Nandigram is important. But this time, it has the significance of Nandigram has increased manifold. For the only reason is that Mamata Banerjee herself decided to contest from Nandigram seat. She is not a voter here, she is not a resident here, but she has decided to contest here on an ideological standpoint. Similarly, BJP has pitted in Suvendu Adhikari, who just few months back was Mamata Banerjee's very strong lieutenant in East Midnapur, especially in Nandigram. He is the standing MLA. So that's why the significance of Nandigram is manifold this time.
Ravik says that Nandigram that way has become a prestige fight for the parties. Even a personal prestige fight for Home Minister Amit Shah, who has been extensively rallying in the region, and Mamata Banerjee.
Both of them has left no stones unturned to reach out to the voters. Mamata Banerjee very significantly spent 3 whole days campaigning in Nandigram, holding 3 to 4 public meetings, road shows every day. As you know, Mamata Banerjee is the most brightest campaigner of Trinamool Congress. She's the most popular face of Trinamool Congress in Bengal as the chief minister. She chose to spend 3 whole days, leaving all other constituencies, to campaign in Nandigram. That gives you an idea of how important Nandigram it is. For Suvendu Adhikari, it's the same way, equally important. For BJP, it's equally important. Amit Shah personally came down here yesterday, did a road show, and even in an unprecedented manner, left his car, started meeting people, held a meeting with youth level workers. This shows that both parties are giving tremendous importance to Nandigram.
Ravik points out that during a press conference, Amit Shah had himself said that the easiest way to bring about real parivartan, that is change, is to defeat Mamata Banerjee in Nandigram.
सबका एक मूड है कि परिवर्तन तो पूरे बंगाल में करना है, मगर पूरे बंगाल में परिवर्तन करने का एक सरल रास्ता है, नंदीग्राम में ममता दीदी को हरा दो। नंदीग्राम में ममता दीदी को हराने से पूरे बंगाल में परिवर्तन अपने आप हो जाएगा। और ये जो माहौल
When talking about Nandigram, Ravik says that it used to be a stronghold of the left front party. But ever since the anti-land acquisition movement that we talked about earlier, TMC has been winning from this seat. Though by choosing this seat, Mamata Banerjee has gone for a direct contest with the BJP and has not shied away from a face-off. But there might be other reasons at play as well. To understand that, let's take a look at the constituency itself.
Basically, Nandigram comprises of Nandigram Block 1 and Nandigram Block 2 in Purva Medinipur district. In Nandigram Block 1 and Block 2, there is mainly people are into farming, into fisheries, and there is a large chunk of migrant laborer moving out from Nandigram. This is the basic profile of the area.
Now, the fact that the area has a lot of farmers might have played a role in Banerjee's decision to contest from the seat. In this election, she has gone back to her image of a pro-farmer leader, and at a time when farmers are protesting against the centre's farm laws in other states. This could help establish her image as a protector of farmers' rights. So this is another reason she has been rallying strong in the region. In her latest speech there, she fiercely attacked the BJP and in the middle of it even chanted her now popular slogan from this campaign, Khela hobe, meaning game on. She said that it's game on and that we have to win the game. Goons will continue to do what goons do, but we can't be scared and run away.
খেলা হবে কি মা বোনেরা খেলা হবে খেলায় জিততে হবে গুন্ডারা গুন্ডামি করলে হাতা খুন্তি দিয়ে তেড়ে যাওয়া হবে
Meanwhile, Amit Shah drew large crowds in the region as well. In his roadshow in Nandigram, the chants that were heard included Krishna Krishna Hare Hare BJP Ghare Ghare and Dole Dole Nandigram Jai Shri Ram Jai Shri Ram.
Haro jore Nandigram, haro jore Nandigram, haro jore Nandigram, haro jore Nandigram.
In Nandigram, the battle appears to be between Mamata Banerjee and Amit Shah, or Mamata Banerjee and Narendra Modi. Even though the person Mamata Banerjee is actually contesting there is Suvendu Adhikari. And Ravik says that this is because the BJP still doesn't have a strong chief ministerial face.
If you walk through Nandigram right now, you will see huge cutouts of Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. It is as if Mamata Banerjee is fighting against Narendra Modi and Amit Shah here. Despite the fact that Suvendu is a very strong leader. Suvendu is one of the most popular leader in Trinamool Congress and now one of the most influential and popular leader in BJP. But still, it seems to the people, or it seems to us who are in Nandigram, that it's basically a fight of Narendra Modi, Amit Shah versus Mamata Banerjee.
And this, he says, is not just the case in Nandigram, but the case in other parts of the state as well. BJP has been fighting without a specific chief minister in mind. But still, the contest is strong from both sides.
See, it's a 50-50 battle here. Neither party is leaving a single inch of political space here. See, this Nandigram seat, if Mamata Banerjee wins, it will be her ideological victory over BJP. Apart from the fact she will be defeating a person who was one of her strongest young leaders in the party and defected to BJP recently. If Shubhendu Adhikari somehow wins this seat, it will be the biggest jolt faced by Mamata Banerjee in her entire political career. She will apparently, even if her party wins the Bengal polls, she will lose her face here. It will be a major jolt to her.
He says that Nandigram is more than just one seat. It represents an ideological battle. Ravik says that it is the most prestigious seat in West Bengal.
If Mamata Banerjee loses in Nandigram, her entire anti-land acquisition movement goes into vain. If Shubhendu Adhikari pulls out this seat, then he'll be the brightest face for BJP. If BJP somehow is able to come to power in West Bengal, he may be the chief minister, the deputy chief minister's face. And the other way around, if Mamata Banerjee wins, she can. It will reflect that even Amit Shah and Shubhendu Adhikari, they pull on all their weight behind just one seat, but they couldn't defeat Mamata. Mamata Banerjee will not only remain as a supreme leader of Bengal and face, but her prestige in nationally will grow. If Mamata Banerjee wins from this seat and Trinamool Congress retains Bengal, retains power in Bengal, then she will be the national opposition face against Modi. She will be the first face or the first party to stop Modi Shah or stop BJP from expanding.
On Tuesday, the campaign for Nandigram came to an end. And now Ravik says there is kind of a silence there in the region. Though things still remain tense, yesterday Mamata Banerjee urged the Election Commission to take action, alleging that goons from other states have come to Nandigram to foment trouble and intimidate the voters. On the other hand, the BJP accused Mamata Banerjee of issuing threats to its supporters in her rallies and registered a complaint with the Election Commission over the alleged comments made by her.
There are 255 booths in Nandigram, all of which have been declared as sensitive. There are the Election Commission has pressed in 22 companies of paramilitary forces, which is unprecedented if you take Nandigram, if you look at previous elections. So now it is to see that since it is such a vital seat and both BJP and TMC is running 50-50 here, whether there will be any violence. People of Nandigram are now praying that they should be allowed to go to vote. There should be peaceful polling. Tomorrow when they reach to the booths, there should be, no violence. That is the situation prevailing right now in Nandigram.
And next we talk about electoral bonds and the Supreme Court's recent decision regarding them. Now, electoral bonds are a way of donating money anonymously to political parties. The concept was first introduced in 2017, and since then it has become the most popular way of donating money to political parties. According to analysis done by the Association for Democratic Reforms, more than half the total income of national parties and regional parties for the financial year 2018 to 19 came from electoral bonds donations. The BJP, in fact, has been the biggest beneficiary of this scheme. In the years 2017 to 18 and 2018 to 19, political parties received a little over 2,760 crore rupees from electoral bonds. And out of this, more than 60% was received by BJP alone. The concept of electoral bonds has been challenged in the court. Last week on Friday, the Supreme Court heard a clutch of petitions regarding them, but decided to dismiss them. In this segment, we talk to Apurva Vishwanath, who writes on law for the newspaper, about this matter. And she starts by explaining exactly what electoral bonds are.
So electoral bonds are what are referred to as interest-free bearer instruments. It's essentially monetary instrument used to donate to political parties anonymously, which means that the instrument will not carry any information about the buyer or payee. Like if I have to donate money to a political party, the holder of the instrument, which is the political party. So you basically get one of these instruments in the name of the political party and give it to them. And these are sold in multiples of 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakhs, and 1 crore as well. And the State Bank of India is the only bank which is authorized to sell them. So somebody like you or me can go buy them and give it to a political party, draw it in the name of a political party.
And then no one would know who you and I donated to?
The bank would know it. There are very few players who would know it, but to the public at large, nobody knows who donated this money. And there is no limit on the number of bonds an individual or company can purchase. So that means you can donate how much ever money you want without knowing that you donated this amount of money, without letting anyone know that you donated this amount of money.
Right. And in the past, we have seen the idea of electoral bonds being challenged in the court. Could you talk about the reason why it has been challenged?
The issue is really of transparency. So the challenge before the Supreme Court was filed by Association for Democratic Reforms, this organization which works on electoral transparency and accountability, along with another non-profit called Common Cause. So the issues were really like twofold. One, the challenging of the electoral bond scheme itself, that was announced in 2017. And the petitioners also asked the court to declare all political parties as public offices so that they can be brought under the right to information. And this information as to how much donation they have received in a particular year, or from what sources have they received, that can be culled out from the political parties. And the other aspect was to compel political parties to disclose their income and expenditure. How are you spending this money that you are getting from either electoral bonds or any other source? So this it was essentially challenging the transparency and accountability aspect of it. So because in 2017, electoral bonds were understood to be a way for companies, corporations to make anonymous donations. However, we've seen that since 2017, individuals or even group of individuals, NGOs, religious organization, trusts, everybody are permitted to donate through electoral bonds without disclosing their details. So this aspect of anonymity is what is a point of contention.
And what do electoral bonds mean for voters for whom this lack of transparency would also be an issue?
For a voter, it means that they will never know which individual, company, or organization has been funding a party and to what extent. So, before electoral bonds came into play, parties had to disclose all the details of all their donors who had contributed anything more than 20,000 rupees. That was the limit that was set. So, there was this aspect of, so which is why many political parties would collect donations of less than 20,000 rupees to keep their donor data anonymously. But with electoral bonds, it doesn't matter how much donation a person is making, you don't have to disclose it to the public. So it strikes at the heart of the voters' right to know.
Right. And last Friday, the Supreme Court had heard a clutch of petitions that were filed against electoral bonds. Now, in this case, the court dismissed these petitions. Could you talk about what these petitions said and what was the court's reasoning behind dismissing them?
So the latest ruling of the Supreme Court, where it dismissed these petitions, this had sought a stay on the sale of fresh electoral bonds. So these fresh electoral bonds were being issued ahead of the assembly elections in West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Assam, and Puducherry. But there is already a larger constitutional case that is pending, which was filed in 2017, in which the court had issued notice to the Election Commission, the government, but that case hasn't seen even one substantive hearing. So the petitioners now moved to court again, asking for a stay on the sale of this fresh tranche. So this is basically seeking an interim relief till the court finally hears that larger case and decides in one way or the other. But what the court essentially said was that the scheme has been active since 2017 and many tranches have been sold in 2018 and 2019. So there is no justification really for the court to stop the sale now and grant an interim stay. So the court basically felt that since it has been in operation, if it goes on for one more time, there is no real harm as such.
So the court dismissed these petitions, but what has been the Election Commission's stance on electoral bonds?
So the Election Commission has in fact pointed out that there are issues with regard to transparency and accountability with the electoral bond scheme. In its submission to the Standing Committee in 2017, the EC had objected to these amendments that were made to the Representation of People's Act, which is the law that basically exempts political parties from disclosing donations through electoral bonds. The EC, in fact, had written to the Law Ministry asking the government to reconsider and modify these amendments. But in the court, the EC took a slightly different route in how this is being implemented. So the EC stand is that although they object to this in principle, the anonymity aspect of the electoral bonds in principle, they didn't see merit in seeking a stay from the court at this point. So when the case came up for hearing, the government and the Election Commission did not want the court to stay the case. So this was the petitioners on one side who were seeking a stay, but both EC and the government were on the same side, although the EC has previously pointed out glaring loopholes in this law.
Okay, so earlier you had mentioned that the larger constitutional case regarding electoral bonds is still pending. Do we know when that is likely to be heard?
Unfortunately, it really depends on the court and its schedule. As we've seen, hit by the pandemic, there is a huge backlog of cases at the Supreme Court. And many cases have sort of taken a back seat. Many important constitutional challenges have sort of taken a back seat. And this is one of the issues that critics point out, that the Supreme Court has put these cases in cold storage, instead has been choosing like some other cases to hear and fast track and decide them sooner. So we don't know when the larger case will be heard. And one fear is that by the time the court hears it and decides one way or the other, it'll be too late, and the case and the issue of electoral bonds will become, in fact, fait accompli, which means that the change will be irreversible, and it will be the court's decision will come at a point when nothing can be done to reverse the situation or restore the balance of powers. For example, in the Aadhaar case, you saw that all the enrollment had already happened by the time the court heard and decided the case in final. So, which means that the process of enrollment, or whether consent was obtained in the right way, became a fait accompli situation.
And next, we talk about COVID-19 cases rising in India. Several parts of the country have been reporting a second wave of COVID-19 cases. This has meant a rise in the number of active cases and a rise in the number of deaths. Taking a note of this, the central government said that the situation is going from bad to worse. In this segment, Kaunain Sheriff, who reports on health for the paper, talks about this rise.
So the remarks come in the backdrop of increasing number of active cases, that's the daily new cases, as well as the daily new deaths that have been reported in the country. So if you look at few weeks back, maybe in the first week of February, we had around a lakh active cases in the country. Today we have more than 5.5 lakh active cases. So it's a big rise. And most of these cases that are now concentrated in Maharashtra. So if you look at the top districts, the 10 districts, 8 of the 10 districts are from Maharashtra, except for Bangalore in Karnataka and Delhi. In terms of death also, now we are seeing daily deaths which are now breaching 300, and that's a big worry. And in fact, Punjab is reporting the second highest number of deaths. If you consider the population of Punjab and compare it to other states, it is significantly lower, but is reporting very high rate of deaths.
Plus, he says that yesterday, Chhattisgarh had become the state with the second highest number of active cases reported in a single day. This is especially concerning because the state does not have a robust healthcare infrastructure.
So trend basically is that districts and regions which weren't reporting cases in the first wave are now reporting in the second wave, which clearly says that a large percentage of the population in the country is still vulnerable to the virus. And then it also signifies that 2 or 3 strategies are just failing at the district level, which is of course testing. Second is of course containment zones, and third is contact tracing. So if you look at that, the increase is happening even after 14 days, which is the incubation period of the virus, which means that we are not able to identify where the active cases are. If we are identifying the active cases, then we are not able to contact trace the positive patients or isolate them, or we are just not testing enough. So these are the 3 things which are not just the numbers, but also the containment strategy, which is the cause of worry, is what the government is actually saying.
In terms of testing, the center has asked the states to reduce the number of antigen tests they do. Because although they work fast, antigen tests give a very high rate of false negatives. And a number of states have been guilty of overusing them. When it comes to containment, Kaunain says that some states are doing what is called as micro-containment, where only a single floor would be contained. Now the center says that you can do that, but then the floor should be manned properly and adequate surveillance should be done. And apart from testing and containment, there is also a matter of deaths.
Both Punjab and Maharashtra, the ICUs, especially the worrying districts, it's almost as high as 50% occupancy rate, which means that patients are coming really late to the hospitals. So if you come with a severe infection, the chances of the survival actually decreases. So that's why we are seeing such high rates of deaths in Punjab and Maharashtra. So government has told them to do a detailed analysis of why the deaths are happening, and to make sure that the vulnerable population is isolated, the clinical management protocols are followed, and the beds for oxygen are increased.
The states have also been asked to ensure basic COVID protocols, wearing of masks, social distancing, and promoting basic hygiene. And apart from these measures, the centre now is of course using the vaccination drive as a strategy. Especially considering from today, the country will start vaccinating everyone above the age of 45.
This is going to be the largest drive in the country, around 30 crore people. So the states have been told that the districts, which are the surge districts, you have to achieve 100% vaccination coverage of this vulnerable group. Because if you look at the numbers, 90% of the deaths in the country are above the age of 45. So you know that you can stop the severe infection by vaccinating people. So that's the new strategy that the government has directed all the states to vaccinate 100% of this age group in the surge districts.
You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.